Procurement professionals are asked to do more and more in order to drive bottom line results for the business. At times, it can feel like a repetitive cycle, something straight out of the movie Groundhog Day, where procurement is given bigger and bigger targets and has to scramble to execute on more projects, touch more spend, react to more stakeholders and more issues, and then do it all over again. Many organisations have started to realise that it is imperative that they do something differently in order to break the reactive cycle. Successful organisations have embraced the request to do more and have turned it into an opportunity to increase the strategic role of procurement, to make procurement a destination role, and to be closer than ever before to the business. How do successful organisations navigate this journey? What are the keys to success, and what is imperative for individuals and organisations to do when on this journey? Hello, I'm Tanya Siri, founder of Procurious. Welcome to today's webinar, Breaking the Groundhog Day Mentality, Enabling a True Category Management Mindset. I'm joined today by Alpa Camber and Chris Ironman from Denali, a WNS company, and Christoph Isbar, partner of Transitive Management. Alpa Camber, Executive Vice President at Denali, has been dubbed the Sultan of Strategic Sourcing. Having known Alpa for over 20 years, I can certainly vouch for him as a pro to know. Although our paths haven't crossed directly, I do have some shared history with our second guest speaker, Chris Ironman, Senior Director at Denali. We both studied at Penn State many years ago, and since then, Chris has racked up 30 years of technical experience. Our final speaker, Christoph Isbar, partner with Transitive Management, joins us from Belgium. Not content with his day job and some 30 years of experience in the procurement and supply chain world, Christoph is also passing on his expertise to the next generation of procurement pros at Scammer Business School in Lille. There's no question that we are in very good hands today. Welcome all. Let's start with you, Chris. I guess to start our discussion, what does it mean to have a category management mindset? And how is it different to a traditional sourcing-focused procurement mentality?
Thanks, Tanya, and glad to lead us off today, and welcome everyone. Recall when you registered for the webinar, we asked a little polling question to try to get at this question a little bit, at least in terms of how you're currently thinking about category management. And just very briefly on the results that we've seen, about 15% of you say you're still trying to understand what category management is. About 10% think of category management as part of the sourcing process. About half of the participants said they really think about category management as a strategic planning process closely tied with stakeholders. And about 25% of the people say, yeah, it's all the strategic stuff that I was still trying to find time to get to. And just a couple of you said, yeah, we think of category management as that big pile of paper that the consultant left. So clearly it means a lot of different things, and what we see from a lot of our clients and across the market globally is that there seems to be a pretty good understanding of what category management is, as you see from the poll results, but really many organizations and most organizations in very different stages of their journey to getting there, and how to get there is the challenge. So let me start with, I think it's always helpful to start with a definition. So you can see on the slide here, we've laid out a high-level definition for category management. It's a strategic business process. We think it's something that is really the way that the procurement organizations should run their entire procurement operation. One that's business aligned, that is tightly integrated with business stakeholders and then the business objectives. One that views a category across the entire business, not just a single business focus, not just a single region, but is truly looking across the business. And one that has a long-range vision. So here we're not talking about a one-year sourcing portfolio, but we're looking truly across multiple years, 3, 5 years, or whatever the duration may be appropriate for that category. So we think about category management. It's also, and one of the really important things that we'll try to emphasize here is we want you to think of it also as a mindset. We do a lot of the different activities, spend analytics, working with our stakeholders, developing supplier relationships, but really kind of putting aside the process, putting aside the tools and templates, and really taking a mindset and a strategic thought process about category management that we find is very helpful. And we're going to talk a lot more about that mindset and about the specific elements of that through the conversation. So why do organizations do this? That's for many organizations, that could be a long path to doing what we had just described, the journey as we discussed. The long and short of it is that category management can drive and does drive tremendous value for the business. And you think about a lot of those key principles that we had discussed from the outset. How does it do that? Well, if you're looking at a multi-year plan, that really helps to drive opportunities that you wouldn't necessarily have in front of you if you're only looking at a 12-month portfolio. If you're just focused on a sourcing project or a sourcing portfolio, you may be missing opportunities to drive optimization through the contracting, through supplier relationships to drive supplier innovation. If you're not taking a proactive approach with your stakeholders, you're certainly missing opportunities to kind of really challenge the business need and support the business needs at the core. Now, this slide talks about savings. And as procurement professionals, we know that savings is still king with many organizations, but really what we're talking about here is total business value. And that's really what we're trying to focus on with category management. Savings is part of that, but so is innovation, so is speed to market. If you're a high-tech organization, you may not care about savings. So what are the important things to the business? Those are the core items that we want to pursue and meet with our category strategies. And how we do that is through this approach. Again, we think of category management as that strategic procurement operating model. We think of it as very closely aligned with the business, and that follows a really intentional planning process. So you see that in the graphic here, category management and that category planning cycle as really distinct from the execution phase of sourcing, contracting, supplier management. We're in the category management planning cycle. We're looking at the internal to the organization, your spend analysis, your segmentation, your stakeholders, your business requirements. What do we need from this category? Matching that with your external assessment of the market, of your supply base, of benchmarks, of the view of the marketplace, and bringing those together into a robust strategy and portfolio that's going to drive that activity proactively through your sourcing, contracting, and supplier management. So Tanya, hopefully that sets the stage for us here today and really sets the foundation for a discussion on how we'll get there.
Thanks, Chris. And it certainly all sounds great. But I mean, maybe a question for you, Alpa. What does it take to do all this?
Thanks, Tanya, for that question. And I also want to thank Chris for a good introduction and a definition of category management. When you ask the question, what does it take to deliver that? I think I want to go back to the nature of procurement. It's designed to be a reactive function. What I mean by reactive is historically it's known to be you go to procurement to ask for something. Hey, please put a contract in place, get the supplier paid. We have an issue with a supplier, or we need to negotiate a contract with this vendor. So it's designed to react to asks that are coming in to the organization. And that's random, that's not planned, and oftentimes procurement is kind of put in that box where it's a reactive function. Now, what we're trying to do here, and we've seen companies and helped companies over the last 10 plus years, is to change that to be a proactive function. And what I mean by proactive is what Chris said, define what the value is, make a plan and how you're going to attack that value and deliver that to the organization and put in place a team that can execute on it. So when I want to go back to, again, to how we started helping companies and what were some of the operational challenges they were having. When you look at the work that we're talking about, there's strategic activities and there's operational activities when it comes to procurement. And just by design, and when I said it's reactive, when the organization asked to respond to certain projects or certain transactions, certain issues, the capacity that they have gets to be spent on operational activities, most of it, 80-90% we've seen. That leaves very little time to, even if they have the skill set and the capability to do strategic work, they don't have time to do it. So when you talk about a person, to say you're a category manager, but you're asked to run RFPs, you are asked to put contracts in place, execute contracts, respond to supplier issues. That takes away all the bandwidth and capacity too. So there's no time to plan your portfolio, understand what is your current level of maturity for category. For example, if your category is professional services, there's many things that goes under it. Just pick one, let's say training services, an organization that's consuming different levels of training services, for example. If that is one of your subcategories, understand the current maturity. What is the level of supplier distribution? What does the market look like as the market start using more on-demand, digital training versus more in-person training, but your organization has shifted or your stakeholders have different requirements, whereas the market is not meeting it. So it's not just about cost, it's about the effectiveness, it's about the value. But for you to be able to think about as a category manager of these value levers, you need to have time, you need to have bandwidth, you need to have the right tools, the right mindset, as Chris said. All those things come in. So we've seen organizations successfully do a number of things. One, they free up time. They said, okay, these people are category managers, and we need to get them out of doing tactical, transactional, execution level work. That gives them bandwidth to do it, to do strategic work, to think about their category, to go meet with their stakeholders, understand their business, get closer with them. Number two, we're going to also support and supplement them with just in any enablement. Training is important, but it's only the beginning. Have them go through an academy, like the academy that we built. That starts with a foundation level, goes into excellence, and then to mastery over time. It's a journey. It takes 18 to 24 months to successfully master category management. But it starts with bandwidth, going through the skill set, the tools that you have to adopt, and then being able to rely on a team that can execute on your behalf. So all these initiatives that you may come up with, we're going to go and create a rate card for these training services we've talked about, for example. That is a project. Or we're going to create a catalog for mostly consumed training services with the preferred vendor so that the organization can buy off of it. These are all examples of initiatives that a category manager may develop, but then hand it off to an execution team that supports not only this category manager, but many others around similar initiatives that can execute efficiently and effectively. So it's really that shift of volume of work, separating strategic and decision-making from operational execution and transactional work into different groups of people, and not mixing the two, and then giving them enough capacity and support to do their work. And we've seen organizations on that journey and effectively influence more spend, identify more value and savings to be delivered on what they can influence, as well as do it faster and more cost effectively as well when you look at the total value that it can create.
Well, I know there'll be a lot of category managers listening to this, hoping that their CPOs help them create some extra time and bandwidth to focus on some more strategic activities. I'm sure everyone would like to achieve that. And maybe, Christophe, you can tell us about your journey and how you helped achieve that for your team.
Yeah, sure. Welcome, everyone. So it all started in my case when I was working for the purchasing leadership team in my past organization, and we were faced with a really huge challenge. How could we deliver bigger targets with less resources? I mean, it's a simple question, but it requires definitely a different approach to be successful. And our answer was really to start looking at doing purchasing with a strategic approach, like Alpar said before, instead of a tactical one. And as you know now, it is exactly what category management does for you. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what we've done during that journey. So one of the first steps that we did was really to reinforce a business role rep. So we had in our company business role representatives. Those were purchasing people directly linked with business teams. But we have reinforced the role, and it was really a good thing to do so that it helped that when you use category management to develop purchasing strategies, that you make sure that they are linked with the business strategy. Another thing that we've done during that journey was to start having what we've called category councils. Those councils they were really global teams led by global commodity managers, for example, on key raw material or big indirect spend like marketing or other type of indirect spend. The council was led by the global commodity manager, and with the help of local support from the different sites that we had globally. So to make sure that when you build those strategies, you've got the local link. And the third thing that we've done was also to create a project pipeline database. And actually, I was a database administrator. And that database contained information like project description, project expected delivery lead time, cost savings, and so on. It's been a critical tool for us because it allows us to really do planning on, first of all, cost savings. So what exactly are we going to deliver out of the category management process, and also to do resource planning. How much resource do we need in the future to deliver on those projects? We have, of course, put together a training program with a rollout plan for that training program, and certainly also reporting tools to monitor the success of the program. It's important to monitor the quality of the plans that you put together. It is not just filling templates. It needs to contain quality. So I will conclude on that question by saying that, as Alpar said, and Chris as well, I think it's a long journey. So in our case, we started 5 years ago. The program was supposed to last for 3 years, and here we are 5 years after and still going.
Well, I mean, I think that the size of the prize sounds like it's worth it, and you're obviously getting some great returns on investing that time in the journey. So I guess, if our audience is looking to truly change the game for category management, how can they make this sort of change sustainable, and what sort of approaches should they consider? Chris, why don't we start with you, and then maybe Christophe, if you want to share some more thoughts.
Yeah, perfect. And I think a lot of the examples that Christophe highlighted are a great lead into this, because there's some good examples of what it takes to really make it sustainable and what it takes to enable true category management across an organization. I think about a manufacturing company I'm working with now. I think we engaged with them. They discussed that the year prior they had another firm in there that helped them, gave them some category management training. They gave them some tools and templates, and then away they went, and they thought they were on their path to good category management. But what they failed to recognize is that it really impacts all the dimensions of procurement. As Alpar indicated, as we talked about at the outset, as all of you, or many of you have indicated, if you really believe that category management is the strategic function that drives procurement, then it has to impact dimensions that go beyond the process layer. So yes, you have to have good processes, tools, good methodologies to do that. Good integration across the life cycle. But as some of the things that Alpar highlighted, you also need to make sure that you are equipping and supporting your category managers with time is a very critical dimension, but also with the enablers that you see listed here, with the competency development, thinking about category management not just as a training document or a one-day training that sets people on their way, but really a long-term competency that supports the organization, supports category managers across a multi-year development, supporting with the appropriate data and analytics. That's always a barrier within organizations that we see, supporting with the right knowledge, enabling the technology, all the enablers that really make procurement overall successful, in this case, category management.